in the mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, and I'll take the question right to you. You heard Dr. Bailey, Mayor de Blasio. Right now, you're requiring frontline workers, I believe, to either get the vaccine or get tested. Do you think you ought to ramp up that mandate to be complete to the vaccine?
So, Mika, first of all, what we announced yesterday, we started with hospital workers, but what I've said is now all city workers, every single New York City worker, almost 400,000 people, will have to either be vaccinated or tested weekly. I want to emphasize that either or really creates a positive pressure for vaccination, because it will be the responsibility of the employee to get tested on a regular basis. And that comes with its own challenges. We're really depending on personal responsibility there. You know what that's going to say to people? Just get vaccinated. Get it done. Be safe. Help your colleagues be safe. Don't have to go through the hassle of weekly testing. But to your larger question, look, I think we're all climbing a ladder here very rapidly. I think we need to look at every form of mandate. And that's public sector and private sector. I've said to the private sector in New York City, any private sector entity can go ahead and do a full mandate. If that's something you feel you can do and works for you, do it now. Everyone's in a different situation, but go as far as you can go right now, because we have to stop the Delta variant.
Are you surprised, Mr. Mayor, by so-called conservative leaders who are actually banning businesses, small family restaurants, entrepreneurs from running their businesses the way they want to run their businesses? And if they want to require somebody to get a vaccination to come into their store for business reasons, for safety reasons, for liability reasons, that some of these so-called conservatives who are actually, I'd say they're actually socialists, not letting the free market run its course. But are you surprised by some of these actions?
Joe Scarborough, you are leading the witness. I think
it's for a question.
I really think you're honestly on a very good point here. I believe it is. If people say they believe in American values of liberty, and then they tell someone, a mom and pop business, you know, we're going to cancel you because you want to keep safe or you want to protect your community, I would put that right squarely in the un-American category. If you say, hey, everyone has a right to run their business, and people are trying to deal with a global pandemic, this isn't an everyday problem. It's a global pandemic that has killed huge numbers of Americans and will kill more if we don't do something about it. Of course, every private entity has a right to do that. And let me tell you, Joe, the anti-vaxxers are criminal at this point. What they are doing to this country is undermining our future. They really are. They're taking away the future of this country, because if we go backwards, if we go back to restrictions and shutdowns, this country is going to be in a horrible, dangerous place in terms of our lives, our livelihoods, our economy. And if we don't get it right on vaccination, we're going to lose a huge number of Americans. There are people out there peddling this message, this anti-vax message, for their own profit, and then attacking people who try and do it the right way, like the small businesses you're talking about. We got to confront them. That's why I think these mandates are so crucial.
Well, yeah, and again, it is just so ridiculous that the same people that are running around, Mike Barnicle, saying that it's un-American for a mom and pop, a hamburger joint, to require somebody to come in to get vaccines so other customers will feel comfortable and can come in as well, especially in areas where this Delta variant's really spreading. Those people that say that's somehow a breach of their constitutional rights not be able to get a hamburger, they were all vaccinated with 5 or 6 vaccines to get education. They vaccinated their children 5 or 6 times before they could even go into preschool or kindergarten. So again, it is an argument that really holds absolutely no water. After 50, 60, 70 years of the United States of America requiring vaccinations to get a public education, these arguments are out of context and out of historical context, make absolutely no sense at all.
Joe, this country has never gone through anything like this. Never mind, we've been through a virus like this 100 years ago, but nobody's ever been through the politicization of masks, of vaccines, and it is destroying parts of this country. And Mr. Mayor, you've got about 1,800 public schools in New York City. You've got 75,000 teachers. You've got over 1 million students. So my question to you is, how will this work out? Who will be in charge of tracking who has a vaccine or who doesn't have a vaccine? Who will be in charge of testing, weekly testing at schools? Will they be done at individual schools, or will there be testing centers? Mechanically, how is it going to work out?
Well, Mike, we went down this road last year because I made the decision to open our public schools. A lot of other school systems in America weren't willing to reopen. We did. We had hundreds of thousands of kids in person in New York City public schools. And thank God for it, because our kids need that, and they need it again now. So we're coming back full strength in September. We did a very extensive testing program in every school. So we know how to do that. Our employees understand how to go through that. But what's good about our Department of Education right now is a high level of vaccination. And we're going to do a major vaccination drive for kids 12 years old and up. And look, I'm a parent. My kids went to New York City public schools. If my kids were going to school in September, I would be running to get them vaccinated right now. And like was said a moment ago, we used to do this as parents all the time for a variety of vaccinations. We've got to shake people at this point and say, come on now. We tried voluntary. We could not have been more kind and compassionate as a country. Free testing everywhere you turn, incentives, friendly, warm embrace. The voluntary phase is over. We can keep doing those things. I'm not saying shut it down. I'm saying voluntary alone doesn't work. It's time for mandates, because it's the only way to protect our people.
So let me ask you, I'm sure you are pretty good with political history, right?
I tried, Joe.
I asked you a leading question. Now I'm going to ask you a history edit. Do you remember what John Nance Gardner said about the vice presidency, repeated by Sam Rayburn to Lyndon Johnson in 1960?
What, warm bucket of spit, something like that? Remind me.
Said it wasn't worth. Said it was, the vice presidency wasn't worth a warm bucket of spit.
Joe, we got to go on Jeopardy together, Joe. Political history Jeopardy.
We really do. Joint here, right. So there are some people that would think that getting tests once a week are worth no more than that as well. Or we'll just say, for the morning crowd, not worth a warm bucket of Gatorade. So I'm just curious. I understand politics is often an evolution and not a revolution. I'm curious, are you going to try this weekly testing out as a phase-in to an eventual full requirement that all teachers, all public employees, all cops, all everybody get vaccines?
Joe, look, we're in uncharted territory. You're asking the profound question. Yes, we are climbing a ladder. I'm not answering yes to your question yet. I'm answering to your evolutionary point. Yes, we're climbing a ladder. Yes, we're in uncharted territory, which means we're going to have to try and figure out what works, try things, see what the response is, keep pushing. The ideal here is get everyone vaccinated, and it's necessary. So what gets us there? Sometimes the voluntary approach works. I think that was true in the first months. We think now, saying you got to get vaccinated. If you don't, then you're responsible for testing every single week, which is a lot of responsibility, is going to move a lot of people to vaccination. It's just going to be the moment where they say, okay, to hell with it, I'm going to do it. But if that's not enough, I think we got to be ready to climb the ladder more. And I think private sector entities can do some of that right now. Public sector entities need to move as quickly as possible. This DOJ decision is important. I think that'll be helpful. We got to put pressure on this situation. Evolutionary, but fast evolutionary.
Yeah. All right. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, my Jeopardy co-partner, who also obviously read Teddy White's The Making of the President 1960. Thank you so much for being with us.
One of the greats, Joe. One of the greats.
Still one of the greats.
It would also help if the FDA would fully approve the vaccine, which is a process we need to look into.